Hello, today is September 10th, and it's the news day, and definitely not the day before the anniversary of something very sad. That's all I could think of for the date. Only story.
Yeah, so we got government news and social media news and design today. Almost forgot what the second one was.
Social media is almost entirely the terrible things that Facebook are up to this week.
Facebook sure gets the headlines, don't they? They're like Trump.
Well, last week, actually. It was the stuff Facebook was up to last week that has now been reported on and analyzed. A lot of people are like, oh my God, the news is old. It's like, you don't understand. Like, you get the news out and it's like the knee-jerk insanity. You need at least a week to, like, look at it and think about it and wait for the developing stuff. Because these companies release crap on, like, a Friday, hoping that nobody notices. And then it's, like, Tuesday before the good writers get around to writing about what happened last Friday.
Well, and we film on Sunday afternoon. So
Well, that's
not important.
That doesn't even factor in.
Yeah.
The mistake you're making is giving any credence to YouTube comments. It's the lowest form of humanity.
Thanks, patrons.
We got no Ajit Pai this week. I'm sorry.
Must have been on vacation.
I think it's
Surprising.
like
Yeah.
maybe it's isn't the Senate in downtime right now?
I mean, he's put in a lot of work for corruption and stuff. It's crazy.
Man's got to take a break. It's only fair, right? Go out to Verizon Island with the family. So instead, we'll start with an outrageous story from Google. Well, not really from Google, from the feds. This is not a news story. Technically, it's just more of the same, and you'd think that maybe the outrage from before would stop them. You'd be wrong.
The Verge says that feds have ordered Google location dragnet to solve a Wisconsin bank robbery. It's not just Google. That's sensationalist. It's Google and Apple. They want to know if there are any devices that were around the area of this Wisconsin bank robbery at like 9 a.m. on whenever it happened. Because like two dudes literally showed up whenever the bank opened up and left with a garbage bag full of money. And they got a picture of them in there. They haven't really had a lot of leads.
This,
It's not this.
This is Lady Justice, who she's blind because Justice is blind, but she can detect your location data.
She's peeking out from underneath it.
So yeah, there they are. They claim they had beards and sunglasses
And hoodies.
Hoods. So they don't really have a good idea.
Could literally be any construction worker anywhere around that area.
But they were very well planned. They were the first customers of the day. There's nobody else in the bank, and they had them empty out all the trays out front, and they got in the vault, emptied out some vault trays, took the vault keys with them. Pro move, I guess. I don't know.
Is that a pro criminal tip?
I don't see how that benefits you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they have no idea who these guys are. Let's just look at everybody who happened to be in the area.
That seems a little excessive. This seems like a fishing expedition. And you might be thinking, and it's like, well, if it helps them catch the bank robbers. But
is there even any guarantee that the bank robbers would have a cell phone on them?
No, not
That'd
at
be
all.
pretty dumb.
Yeah.
Although they did say there was a getaway driver, and they were hoping that the getaway driver might have been the one who kept a device. Here's your pro criminal tip. I think we've actually given this one before. If you're going to go do crime, do not take your phone.
You don't need it. It's fine.
What if you get lost?
Just deal with it. It's better.
Use an atlas.
It does seem a bit like overreach. I mean, because you're going to get the overzealous, like if in a perfect world, it's like, yes, the technology, and then they crack the case, whatever. But the reality is that a lot of the time you get the overzealous prosecutor, and it's like you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then...
And you happen to have a beard.
Yeah.
And you own a hoodie, so clearly it was you.
Yeah. Unfortunate. So, remember that California data privacy law? It was supposed to be the best in the nation, untouchable when it comes to other types of data privacy. They were going to just really stick it to the man by doing their own version of data privacy. Google took a look at that and they were like, oh man, oh yeah, this is good. Oh, this is great. We love this kind of stuff. Except this part here about ads.
Google and the industry tried to water down the first U.S. data privacy law. So this is going to be a theme for several of the stories. A lot of consumer protection stuff, especially in California, is happening. And so this is in California. And Basically, Google wants you to be able to opt into this automatically for using Google services. Really, is what it boils down to. So, like, if you use Google anything, you've basically agreed to whatever in terms of like data sharing. So this law wouldn't really affect anybody that uses Google anything, which is basically everybody.
Yep, and the default case in this law would pretty much destroy Google's data collection because of the way it works. And Google's like, oh, let's just change some of this wording here, which a lot of people have weighed in on the proposed changes, and they're like, no, this completely, it's toothless after this. We can't do this. This is ridiculous.
And yet, Google probably owns half of California.
Yes, this will definitely show how far their reach goes.
I think Google's in a little bit of a scramble now, too, to try to find a way to maintain the ability to do targeted ads, but to also kind of rein in the industry. I mean, for a long time, Google had the non-obtrusive banner ads, and now, certainly doing the news every week, we see what sort of a wasteland the full banner advertising, pop-up, data mining, JavaScript crash insanity that we constantly endure has created. And Google delayed that, but it happened.
Those of you who remember the early days of the news, we used to not use an ad blocker at all, and we had to start.
Have you seen that company? I can't remember which company it is, but if you search for their specific company name, they have a Google ad, and it's the top one, and it says, "We are being held hostage. We have to buy this ad because if you search for our software, maybe it's Basecamp." But basically, they're just complaining about it, which is funny, sad but funny.
A lot of people don't even realize those are ads, even though they're marked as such.
Well, that's the point that they're making in their little ad there. It's like, we're not the top. You searched specifically for our name, but we have to pay Google to be the first thing that you see.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, our competitors will get this. It's like, no.
So we talked about, I think was it Ohio?
Florida.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Ohio.
Florida also.
Where
just Florida man.
The Attorney General put a stop to the selling of certain data from the DMV. But at the end, he was like, okay, we're going to stop this for now. But remember, you all opted into this when you got a driver's license, as if that's optional. But we find out that it was not at all limited to Ohio.
Motherboard says the DMVs are selling your data to private investigators. So if you read this article, it just gets more and more horrifying the farther that you go. Turns out a lot of DMVs and a lot of places are selling your data. And the DMV's only real defense was like, well, we're not selling them your social security number, but every other piece of information that they have on you is being sold.
And so the way this law works, it turns out in 1994, some stalker, it got a woman's address through the DMV somehow, and then went and killed her. So they created the laws as like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do that. But the loophole is it's okay for private investigators. Some places private investigators are licensed, but not everywhere.
I was going to say, how hard is it to become a private investigator?
It's
not hard.
It depends on where you are, but I doubt it's that crazy anywhere. So they're definitely selling it to lots of different places, but how much red tape is there before you can just get somebody's DMV information? And I think Motherboard actually went out and went to a private investigator and just bought some DMV data, and they're like, this was real easy and cheap. Yeah.
So you're saying the law doesn't really? It's like if you're a stalker, good news. You can just go to a private eye and be like, I need this person's data.
Yeah, great news for the the basement dwellers of the world.
Well, that was effective.
So we talk about. I actually should have put these stories together. Google's got all this data, and the feds are just like, oh, I want that. I need that. And in this situation, this is very interesting. So, let's do the headline first.
Exclusive. Feds demand Apple and Google hand over names of 10,000 plus users of a GunScope app. I should point out 10,000 users is very low. That is a lower bound estimate. That number, they come from like the number of downloads listed on just the Apple App Store. It's probably much larger.
Well, it is a niche thing because it only works with this one kind of scope. So like you buy this scope and the app is a part of it. I don't know if it like helps you zero it or you use the phone as part of it. It's got a picture of it here. which
It said it helps with zeroing and a whole bunch of other things. But this is a really easy way for ATF and ICE, I think the article talks about ICE specifically, to find the owners of this scope. And it's like, oh, these are not supposed to be sold outside the U.S. Are people downloading the app outside the U.S.? What about immigrants? Are there any like naughty immigrants that have this? Because apparently that's not allowed.
Why did you pronounce it that way? Naughty?
So yeah, you can't export this thing, and they figured out that some people are exporting it because it is some super high technology, small arms scope. It's under some kind of treaty, and you can't export it. Well, somebody sold it. It wasn't the company that makes it, so they're not in any trouble. They sold some, and then those people exported it.
AKA, they've already been investigated to the nth degree.
Oh, absolutely. And so what the feds are saying is, well, you know what? Just give us everybody's info, and we'll go individually and look at where these apps are being used and figure out.
That doesn't seem Orwellian at all.
Yeah. That's why we don't want, gun registration, because
Well,
they'll make a nice little list.
Google and Microsoft have the ability to just search your computer right now. Why don't we just order Google and Microsoft to deploy an update with the next round of updates for your devices that are going to search for all sorts of contraband?
Don't give them ideas, Wendell.
Oh, they already had that idea. They got a team working on that. Ron Wyden is a guy who regularly gets in the tech headlines. I think he has figured out that's a great little niche for him. I mean, he's a kind of a big lefty, but also kind of freedom guy. It's that weird.
Hey, it worked for Obama.
Dichotomy. I don't think Obama was anywhere on this guy's level, but he definitely understands tech, or seems to understand tech, or has somebody on his team who understands tech far more than all the other lawmakers. And he has a very incendiary statement about Mr. Zuckerberg.
He says that Mark Zuckerberg should face the possibility of a prison term. He ought to be held personally accountable. And he's not talking about the transgressions or the security incidents of Facebook directly. He's talking about the fact that he believes that Zuckerberg constantly lies and misleads the public in terms of what Facebook is doing with the data, how it's structured, how it's designed to make money off of your personal information. He thinks that is the more egregious offense versus the data breach.
Hard to disagree with, really. Now, he doesn't come right out and say exactly what kind of prison term we're talking about. I think he did that for the headline.
Yeah.
But he definitely does double down on it's no, we need to hold these people personally responsible for these kinds of things. And he's not wrong that Zuckerberg kind of is Facebook.
Hey, they paid a $5 billion fine. I mean, that's enough, right?
Can you imagine Zuckerberg in general population?
I can't believe they got off with. I mean, it's $5 billion is just a drop in the bucket. I mean, that was whatever day that was. It was just I don't know. I mean, he would have just been oh, this is really terrible, and just laughing to himself as he's writing the check.
I was imagining him in prison, and what if he did the hot or not service for the prisoners? That's what he should do.
I don't think that would be welcome. I don't think the Aryan Brotherhood would respect that.
Well, listen, they don't need to know. It's all anonymous. That's the key.
If you have flown recently, you've enjoyed a litany of privacy invasion that you've had to go through. And it seems like the TSA loves to throw our tax dollars at new ways to remotely molest you with it. And this one is not necessarily for you. This is more for your baggage.
Airport security 3D baggage scanners could end liquid restrictions. So this is first coming to Heathrow, I guess, in 2022.
How about this headline? How did they go as the really, really brainstorm? How can we try to spin this in a positive? How can we make people think this is a good thing for them?
I mean, it worked on me because I was like, oh, that would be kind of nice to be able to take a full bottle of shampoo. But then you think about it some more and it's oh.
Yeah, so this basically gives them full vision into what's going on in your luggage. I don't even have to open it up, which I guess also is a convenience maybe, but...
Is it? How long until they just store 3D images of all of your luggage and all of your traveling and just put it in a big database somewhere? It's oh, here's a 3D model of all the crap that was in your luggage.
Imagine how valuable that would be as third-party data to sell.
Yeah.
It's like, what do people fly with? Here's a list. Here's what to sell in the airport stores. Yeah, that would be huge. And they would definitely do that. T-Mobile and Boost, their subsidiary, they're really being looked at because of these mergers and stuff. And New York City, who seems to love to go after big businesses these days, especially telecommunications, has found some things they don't like about T-Mobile.
NYC is suing T-Mobile for allegedly selling used phones as new and using other shady tactics. So, New York City said that I can't separate this between T-Mobile and like the individual franchise owners. Like that was not clear from this.
I think this was an overall policy because they talk about the advertising. In the advertising, it says 30-day refund. But there's a catch if you read the fine print. It's a 30-day refund unless you buy it in store. But they only sell phones in store. So, like, how is T-Mobile not aware of that?
Yeah. And some of the used phones may have been people that returned those phones in the 30-day period, or phones that were factory refurbished, or phones that, like, the franchise owner just looked at and was like, this phone's in good enough shape. I'll just clean it up, wipe the grease off of it, put it back in the box. Ta-da! It's new. It's for the next customer that walks in. Was that wrong? Should we not have done that?
Yeah.
Not making excuses, but it's hard to imagine if this was a coordinated T-Mobile effort or just how things shake out when you're a T-Mobile franchise owner.
It doesn't matter. If you chose those people to represent you,
Yeah.
then you should suffer the consequences, just like your children. Now, Krista, this might be important to you.
Yeah, I actually read this article and I sat and thought about how I should feel about it, and then kind of missed out on some of the other articles in this section because I was just thinking about this one.
How many times have you been in a national park and thought to yourself, man, I would love to do some e-biking right now?
Almost never. E-bikes are now allowed in U.S. national parks for better or for worse. Electric bikes, you can now ride them on trails, which is the distinction here. I don't know how to feel about it.
What was the one where they were hucking them into the canal? Was that?
No, that was the lime scooters.
Lime. I would love to go to the Grand Canyon and huck a lime into the Grand Canyon.
Yeet.
That would be negative for the flora and fauna of the Grand Canyon.
It would be.
What if you hit a snake?
Bikes are pretty brutal on trails anyway, as are horses. Some people think that these might even be worse, but also they go faster. So
yeah, they said the one limitation is there's a top end speed limit of 28 miles an hour. That's a lot for a bike.
Well, and especially on like little trails and stuff, I feel like these are going to be a really big liability ultimately.
But if you're, hiking along a trail having a good time, and a 28 mile per hour bike comes roaring past you,
exactly,
that's annoying. I would think.
That is, yeah, it's like the same people who also feel the need to play their music out loud on their headphones, and it's like, I came out here to get away from people and their crappy music. Please don't play it out loud.
That's hilarious. That happens a lot?
Yeah, people do that a lot.
Wow.
I mean, luckily, like a lot of the places I hike, there's not a ton of people, but when you go through any sort of populated area, yes, there will be lots of people listening to their music out loud on a trail.
I can never remember how to pronounce this. Is it Uighur?
I don't know.
Anyway, this is Reuters going out of their way to not say Muslims.
China hacked Asian telcos to spy on Uighur travelers, according to sources.
I like how you just go real low.
Yeah, I don't know. That wasn't the actual news, though. The actual news was like China is hacking all high-value individuals plus Muslims. So, like military or business, like CEO executives. That was the news that broke. It's interesting that they chose to go with that headline.
You think a couple of people in Hong Kong might be on that list now?
More than a couple of people.
So yeah, now when we think about China, I often assume that the jackboots come into the telco and they're like, "Hey, we're listening," and the telco's like, "Yes, sir, of course, I love communism," but apparently they were sneaky about it.
Yeah,
I don't know why they would be.
Taking a page out of our playbook.
Yeah.
It sounded like they were also involved in places other, like it says Southeast Asia, but Southeast Asia is not just China, right? So this would have had to have been foreign telcos as well, so they could try, close the loop.
I think a lot of those people go visit there,
yeah,
and have homes, like family there and stuff.
Yeah, you
So
get the two-way visa thing going on.
They're back and forth. Interesting. So no one should be shocked that the Chinese government is hacking, but hacking their own telcos, that is interesting. I'm sure we'll hear more about that. Now,
This is a quick story.
China, we know, loves facial recognition, and when I say China, I mean, the Communist Party. Not necessarily the people, because as we see in Hong Kong, one of the things that they're doing now is tearing down those cameras, which is hilarious. But even the Chinese people might be getting pushed a little too far in that respect.
China is going to curb facial recognition apps in schools. So that's a positive headline, right?
Is it though? I mean, is this not just find the line and step back a little bit?
Yeah.
I wonder. So we've in the past talked about they were using facial recognition. Now, when we think about facial recognition in school here in the States, it's like catch them as they come in the door, see who it is, map their faces, make sure that nobody leaves when they shouldn't or whatever. But in China, they took it full bore, and it was like, is this person paying attention? There's a camera in every classroom monitoring that.
In every device.
They went pretty crazy with it. If you're that company that does that service, I bet you hate this. We've mentioned the Hong Kong protesters, and as you can imagine, it's really often when people get out of hand in any country, one of the first things they do is shut down the internet. And I don't know if they're necessarily doing that in Hong Kong, but
yeah, they definitely have slowed it way down.
They are definitely, tracking it and trying to find out who's in charge and who's sending out all the organizing messages and stuff. So what's a protester to do? Well, there's an app for that.
Hong Kong protesters are using the Mesh messaging app China can't block. Usage is up over 3,000%. So this is made by a little company in San Francisco?
Yes,
and
nobody's ever heard of it.
It uses Bluetooth Low Energy to communicate. And so it'll send your message, even if it works better in short range, but even longer range stuff, it'll do its best to try to get a message to your device.
And you can do AirDrop style. Just tell everybody in the vicinity what's going on, or you can target individuals, and it will literally keep trying until it can find a way there. So your message might be just hanging out on somebody's phone for a month till they get on a bus and go somewhere, and it's like, oh, finally I can get to my destination.
This is a little encouraging that maybe we are a little bit ahead of China in terms of intelligence services, because when we needed something like this in the West, there was Pokemon Go. If China had really been on top of things, their intelligence service would have developed this app so that they knew, who to deal with in Hong Kong discreetly.
Surely the Chinese have Pokemon Go.
Well, no, I think that we came up with Pokemon Go, and it flew so low under the radar, nobody knows. But if China had been on top of things, they would have rolled this app out immediately, this peer-to-peer networking thing, and then they can track all the users.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Sure, they're working on one, and it's like Russia. Russia doesn't want WhatsApp, but you can use Russian WhatsApp.
How would you like to be that software developer too, where it's like the State Department comes in and it's like, just so you know, chances are Chinese spies are probably going to target you now, so you're under State Department protection? Or am I expecting too much of the government?
Also, San Francisco, there's a lot of Asian people, and you never know who's a sleeper agent for the Communist Party.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
So it's like, oh, the State Department showed up. It wasn't the State Department at all, it turns out. Oh, no.
Agent Chang. So we talked about California's data protection thing, and it's supposed to be, the best in the country. I guess if you stand it up against GDPR and that kind of thing, we do have to give the EU the title there, because they reach deep into the pockets of the big tech companies.
I'm not sure they're not financially motivated, though.
Yeah, well, they obviously are. And then there's Australia. And Australia did a very interesting thing. They started working on it, and they were like, yeah, okay, we're going to do some cool data protection. Yeah, all right. But then near the end here, they've removed something very important. Critically important, some would argue.
Consent has been removed from Australia's proposed data sharing legislation. So the National Data Commissioner won't be able to prevent data from being shared. Rather, they are tasked with capabilities to encourage data custodians and accredited users to safely and respectfully share personal information. They
get a sticker if they do it correctly.
I humbly request, sir. Yeah, so they actually made the argument. They're like, you know what? If we let people make their own decisions here, all this data sharing stuff is not going to work.
They're going to opt out. People don't want it. We need like, how does that always happen? It's like now there's data sharing by law. All must be shared. And it's like, what? This is like, the joke is that happens in communist Russia, not Australia.
But it's not even that. It's like, we know you don't like this. You've made it clear that you don't like this. So clear that we know if we give you a choice, you won't do it. So we're going to make it so you're not allowed to say no to this.
Have the politicians in Australia been convinced that their economy will collapse unless their citizenry is forced into sharing their data? Why would they do this?
I think they're convinced that they'll default on their summer homes if they don't do what they're told. Unfortunate. Sad. And when it comes to government surveillance, you know, we've got China hacking the telcos, and we've got the NSA with their taps and all this crazy stuff and all this subterfuge. And South Africa's like, bros, why are you going to all this trouble? There's a real easy way to do this.
South African government admits conducting mass surveillance on all communications. Yeah, they just were like, there's only a few fiber optic connections coming into South Africa, so we'll just tap them all.
All the undersea cables.
And it's like, wait, doesn't that include like domestic communication and like your citizens and stuff? And they're like, yeah, we'll sort it out later.
Yep, just collect everything.
I mean, you got to admire their directness and honesty about it.
Well, I don't think they admitted it. Somebody figured it out. There was some kind of investigation that got to the bottom of this. And hidden away in this article, the UK has been doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know to what extent, but that's crazy.
That's where they got their undersea fiber optic cable tapping equipment.
So, good luck with that on your island nation, because that's literally everything. I mean, I guess there's some domestic stuff that doesn't make it to the undersea cable.
But we still need specialized equipment to tap fiber optics.
It really brings into perspective that whole thing about, it's like, should we let Google or Huawei build undersea cables? Because they might spy.
It's not a matter of if they're going to spy. It's a matter of who. Like who you choose to spy on you.
So switching to social media, first we need to talk about YouTube. Now this is very interesting because if you remember last week, I think it was last week, if not it was the week before, YouTube came out with this big headline about the commitment to openness. We have to let people say things that other people don't like because that makes us an open platform, and that's what we want to be. And then this week we get this headline.
YouTube has removed 17,000 channels for hate speech. Also, one of the van life channels.
Really?
Yeah, they've been trying to get their channel back for like a month, and YouTube just won't respond.
What was hate speech about van life?
It was there's like this van life channel, and like one of their sub channels was like their kid making like that had his own channel or something, and they just removed it, and they won't comment on why they removed it. They don't have any idea what.
Was it because it was a child? That might be unrelated. That might have gotten wrapped up around this time.
They won't talk about it. Like they won't say why, and it had a lot of subscribers. Like a lot.
So this seems to be mostly in league with the ADL. I think they just kind of let the ADL send them a list.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of white supremacist stuff. I'm sure there's plenty of that on YouTube. There's no secret there. But it's YouTube not being open after saying that they're going to be open. So they are deciding, somebody's deciding what crosses the line and what doesn't. Facebook had an interesting headline. A lot of different places had different headlines about this. Reuters leaves out the juicy part.
Facebook brings face recognition to all users and discontinues tag suggestions. Tag suggestions was a thing that's been enabled forever, which is your friends post a picture, and then Facebook harasses your friends. It's like, is that so-and-so? And then it builds its data set.
So what Reuters leaves out is that you will be opted into this facial recognition. You can opt out, but a lot of people are saying that they're not making it clear to everybody that you can opt out.
Because why would they?
Yeah, they love it. That's
paging
great.
Ron Wyden, clean up on aisle 2.
Yeah, that kind of
my
backs
friends
him
can
up.
see that I've put a picture of us up there.
Yeah, so when you upload a picture, it will automatically use facial recognition to try to figure out who's in it and, do the auto tagging and stuff like that.
Listen, the people in the YouTube comments need an easier way to creep on you. And if the metadata is added automatically, then you're going to show up in searches more easily. How hard is that to understand?
Chris, to get those wedding pictures on Facebook immediately.
I put a couple up.
And that translates into more ad revenue for Facebook and more traffic. I mean, what's not to love?
It turns out that human beings are fundamentally broken. And we have this...
Film at 11.
We have this sickness that makes us, seek validation in a variety of ways. And one of the ways that social media is destroying our mental health is by giving us that instant gratification, that like button, that follow button.
Or the number of comments or any number of the other metrics on which the algorithm measures us and distributes our content to our subscribers.
We need more views.
Wendell has a little bit of that sickness. Just a little. He likes to look at the likes and the comments.
So,
more coffee.
Instagram has, they're the spearhead here. They're actually, in some countries, removing the like button. So you don't know. If you're a thought, you don't know how many people liked your picture. And Facebook says maybe that's not a bad idea.
Facebook says it may remove like counts. Yeah, Facebook could soon start hiding the like counter on newsfeed posts to protect users from envy and dissuade them from self-censorship. Womp womp.
Now here's an interesting question. See if you can riddle me this. Why would you have the like button at all if you can't see it, other than to make sure that your web of spying on all websites continues to exist?
Well, you can see what you liked, because originally that was like a bookmark thing. It was like, tag this and I'll deal with it later. But that's not what it is anymore.
No, I guess there is a use case there.
But
You
yeah, I
changed
could.
the icon, right? You'd want it to be like a save icon or a bookmark icon.
That's a
Well,
good
no,
point.
in the social thing on the Facebook side, I could see it's like 7 of your friends like this, or 7 of your friends and 20 people in your extended network like this. They might go to something like that, or more than 50 people, or whatever.
Some third party is going to build some sort of way to, suss it out based on a web of accounts that they've got.
Wasn't one of the very early Facebook apps the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon? Like Kevin Bacon made a Facebook account, and you could like, how
See
far
how
away are
close
you?
knew him or whatever.
I thought that was about him being in films.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, but it was a funny thing. I don't know if that actually happened or if that was just something somebody said that Facebook should make.
Well, you might not be able to like people on Facebook, but now you can like them for real on Facebook.
Facebook launches an online dating service in the United States.
I like to imagine it's like the Facebook Marketplace, but for people.
Which state? Oh, that's a mistake.
That's from MozzaInside.com.
Mazda Inside. I've never even heard of MozzaInside.com. I don't know why that link was used.
We reported on that this was coming for a while, and
Well, they launched it internationally.
yeah. So the thing that they did, it's really just a link to your Facebook profile and your Instagram profile, but you also get like a separate page for like your dating profile.
But you cannot date your friends.
Yeah,
It's not allowed. You can date friends of your friends, but not your friends, except with the secret crush. So
Oh.
if you go in your friends list and you tag a secret crush, and they also tag you as a secret crush, Facebook will join you together.
gosh, this is so Orwellian.
Of course, when the next big Facebook leaks happen, all of your secret crushes, that's going to be embarrassing when all of your friends find out that you just went through and tagged everybody a secret crush,
That
Cast a
explains
wide
why
net.
he liked all my bikini pics.
PSA, I don't think we had the story this week. I think maybe it was last week. Facebook accidentally leaked like 400 million phone numbers or something crazy
No, we
like
got
that.
that. It's in,
Yeah, I think we
it's
did
in the
that.
security section.
Okay, yeah. So that's not this week. That's this week, but not this episode.
How embarrassing
Ruined.
that all of your terrible, terrible pickup lines that you tried to use on Facebook dating would be released to the world. Sad.
I saw a thing that you said just use the marketplace. Go in there, look for wedding dresses, and then find the recently divorced.
I thought you meant go in the Marketplace app to look for a date, and
No.
it's like, oh, that's dark.
Well, I saw a tweet or something, and it was a woman, and she was like, they've had Facebook dating ever since the beginning of Facebook. That's where you get drunk and message your high school sweetheart and ruin your marriage. And finally, in design, Android. They've decided that it's time for a new logo.
Yeah, and it's not that dramatically different. It's just a little more simplified. The real story here is the applications. So to scroll down a little bit, you can see some of the different like posters and website and
His antenna,
animations. There's some really good animations for the new logo.
His antenna are a little higher up and a little longer.
They are. Well, scroll down so you can see the video of him being animated. It's actually pretty cute. This might not be the video I'm thinking.
Oh no,
of.
there was a GIF. Scroll down
Yeah,
some
there's a
more.
GIF. Yeah. Nope. Keep going. It's just showing different colors. Standard.
It's pretty basic.
It is, but there is a.
There, down a little more. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, so you can see he moves a little bit, and then there's one where he moves his head up and down. Like there's lots of like
It's
little,
on down.
nice little micro gestures like that, which I think it's very cute.
Pay attention, designers. This is what is hot now in the web.
It
not
is, yeah.
not like pop-ups and overlays and things that
Very
slide in.
subtle.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like you don't ham fist the animation here. That was early 2000s.
I really like the color scheme as well. It's unexpected in some ways.
Hasn't that basic primary colors always been there?
Yeah. Well,
I guess these are a little more muted.
Yeah, those are more muted.
But that's like
They
Gmail
use them together really
backgrounds.
well, which I like.
All right, well,
Just a really solid design system. I have no like real critiques here. I think it looks really good. It's solid. Solid work. A little trendy, but I mean, for a tech company, that's kind of what you expect.
That's
probably
good.
tens of millions of dollars of work.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Well, with all these, like the T-shirts and the buttons and stuff, that's expensive too. So,
I like him coming out of the pocket.
Yeah, that's
That's
cute.
a good idea. Although, who wears an Android T-shirt?
at least it's not on a tote bag. That's the thing you
Why
see in
would
design things.
Why
all
would
the
you
time. It's always
wear
a tote
an
bag.
Android T-shirt when you can get a Level 1 T-shirt? There's an amazing selection of Level 1 T-shirts at the store.
You're really about the brand today.
Yeah.
Like, brand.
It's store.level1text.com. We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye. Hey, today's September 11th.
It's the second one we
Let's-
fumbled.
Let's
roll
just
with it.
skip. Just skip over the idea that it's September 11th and that we screwed this up already. Let's just go.
It's gonna be one of those days.
So yeah, Ring. We've been talking about the Ring network for several weeks now. Amazon's partnering with law enforcement. It's really scary, and a lot of people are like, "Hey, this is crazy. You've got this law enforcement network with facial recognition," and Amazon's like, "Whoa, hey, nobody said anything about facial recognition. What are you talking about?" And they were like, "Oh, we're talking about this guy that you hired who's the head of facial recognition."
Ring says it doesn't use facial recognition, but it does have a head of face recognition research.
Different thing.
So it doesn't use facial recognition yet.
I don't know. I think it kind of does.
I think it kind of does too. Yeah. Just because you don't, officially report it.
So yeah, once they get the big, massive network of front doors that are spying on everybody, they will begin running it through facial recognition.
If they're willing to be that disingenuous about the people they employ, imagine how disingenuous they are with things that would actually freak people out.
Yeah, or using the police to, sell their products through fear. It's pretty dark all the way around.
Hey, your face is looking a little sad. Do you want some face cream? We've already ordered it for you.
We got you a prescription for happy pills. Aren't you excited?
And speaking of weird new technology, this brave new world that we're in, how about, do you hate the idea of someone else picking up your Apple Watch and strapping it onto their filthy skin?
Yes.
Well, you might not have to fear any longer if they go through with this thing that they've patented.
Apple patents a wrist watch band that could ID you from your wrist skin.
Wow. Tell me more.
So the TechCrunch has an article here. It's like,
Here's some skin.
Your dermis.
look at that. It's like, oh, this is. But the sensor looks like it goes like in a snake pattern around the whole wrist, like the whole thing. It's like a very long wire to get more samples and data from your wrist.
But wouldn't your skin wrinkle more over time?
It probably changes over time.
Obviously, you get the new one every season, so that's not a problem.
Well, I think it just has to keep updating.
Or maybe it's like fingerprints where that pattern is basically the same.
What if you just jumped out of the shower? You're all pruned up.
Oh, you can't unlock your phone in that
Actually,
scenario.
that's just your fingertips, right?
Yeah.
Generally, yeah.
Pretty terrifying. They also talk about a couple other things they're doing. One of them was like a if you're going to go for a run or whatever, the GPS and the timer would just be LEDs that keep track, so you don't have to wake your phone up to see how far you've run, stuff like that. Nothing really groundbreaking, but they're still at it. So Google, we all know that Google is doing everything they can to track us, but more and more, they're losing that ability because we got the WebKit and now Firefox. Everybody's stepping up and saying, "Hey, we're going to put a stop to a lot of this tracking stuff." And Google might be way ahead of the game here.
Google has a secret webpage that feeds your personal data to advertisers, the report says. These are the people that came up with this report. It was the Brave browser people. They did some legit investigation here. It's actually very impressive. So, long story short, Google actually did figure out a way, around, like the way that the law is written for like GDPR, this is fine. But the spirit of the GDPR law is that Google not do this. So I think Google is probably going to get fined, even though technically doing it this way is not against the law.
Oh, there'll be so many appeals courts for that.
Yeah. Or they're just going to close the loophole in the law. Either one. But basically, Google is using a third-party domain. So, like, you get some content from a third-party domain, and then Google can sort of piece it together behind the scenes. So instead of having, like, a tracking cookie and having all the tracking crap live on your computer, it all lives on Google's computer in the cloud, which basically does an end run around GDPR. Because the advertisers and the individual sites would use that profile to put things back together on their end to build the profile. So, yeah, it's clever. It's genius. I don't think it's going to stop like the European Union from finding them billions of dollars, though.
Nothing stops that.
But in the meantime, when they make $20 billion from that,
maybe the European Union doesn't really care as long as they get their cut.
That remains to be seen. Well, Tesla. We haven't been talking about Tesla too much. They seem to be just, plugging along, doing their own thing. Got some new competition lately. We'll talk about that a little bit.
There was an outage.
But yeah, so this seems phenomenally stupid to me. So you got 3 ways to get into your Tesla. You've got your key fob that they give you, which looks like a little car. How adorable. You've got your near field communication from your phone, and then you've got an app that goes to the internet that unlocks your Tesla.
Yeah.
Why would anybody do that?
Tesla Malfunction locks out owners who depend on app for entry and forces them to scramble for keys. So if
the keys are in quotations there, like what are those?
Yeah, it's smart cards in addition to the fob. So you can have like a smart card in your wallet. It's like a credit card thing, which is easier to carry. But you don't have to use the app. Like, in fact, Tesla is like, if you're in an area with poor cell reception, you won't be able to get into your car. They recommend that you use the Bluetooth low energy thing to pair your phone with your car. So, like, your car can be trained to recognize your phone through Bluetooth. And you can use that to unlock your car. And so you should use that instead of an app because it doesn't depend on the internet.
But these people don't do that for whatever reason.
No.
They want to sell their data, or they want Tesla to sell their data, their location
They
data,
don't get anything for that.
and how often they're using their car, because that's pretty valuable, right?
Yeah. This is annoying.
Another thing that Tesla's been doing is they've been getting in the car insurance game. And it's very interesting because with a Tesla comes a massive, massive amount of telemetry. Tesla knows everything that you're doing in that car. Should your insurance company know about that? That's the question.
Tesla's use of individual driver data for insurance is a state-by-state proposition. So in California, I think, is the first state that this rolled out in.
Yeah, they're doing it in California.
So, but Reuters is writing about this in Chicago, and it varies a little bit, I guess, and whatever. They said that they're only using the same data points that individual, like regular insurance companies use, but they would be like now drivers of Tesla and because if you get the Tesla insurance, that would seem to be an adversarial relationship. They will use anything they can to jack up your rates. And like the guy that was like watching Lord of the Rings and died, like if they had his data, it probably would have been like, no, we can't insure you.
Oh, they ruled on that, the one case where the guy hit the fire truck, and they said that it was the fault of the driver, an over-reliance on automatic driving technology. So they blamed the autopilot, But they said it was the driver's fault for using it,
Yeah.
which doesn't say a lot for the autopilot.
The autopilot does say that you can't stop paying attention, which
Kind of makes it pointless, right?
Yeah.
But so Tesla, I think, is kind of trying to spin this in the other direction. They're saying, hey, let us look, because you're a good driver, right? You're careful. Let us look at everything that you're doing, and we're going to give you really low insurance rates that we're never going to pay out on.
Yeah.
Because you're going to fuck up.
Yeah.
And that's sorry, denied.
You were going 36 in a 35 zone. You're it's denied.
I would never do that.
You turned on your warp speed mode, which we advertise heavily. You're not supposed to do that. And another problem that SpaceX has with going too fast is their satellites.
SpaceX satellite was on a collision course until the ESA satellite was rerouted. So ESA is like, I guess, the European Space Agency, and this SpaceX satellite was part of their Starlink constellation for the terrestrial internet that they're working on building. It's an orbit of about 300 kilometers, I guess, 320 kilometers, something like that. So it's a pretty low orbit. And the ESA tried to use, like, there's a communication system to be like, hey, there's a 1 in 10,000 chance our satellites are going to collide. One of us is going to have to move stuff. And I guess that system was broken or whatever. And so the ESA is like, all right, we'll move ours because you're ignoring us.
And so the critical point, this is how serious they are about satellites, because there's no fixing it. You know, if it runs into another satellite, that's a wrap. And then you're going to pay tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to replace it. 1 in 1,000 is considered like hair on fire emergency in the satellite game. I thought they were like, what, 25 miles apart?
Yeah.
So people are literally just screaming and gnashing their teeth. But hey, you know, it's serious business up there. So they had to expend a little propellant.
Yeah.
That's not cheap.
No. And you can't do that forever because there's a finite amount of fuel on those. Can't refuel them.
Not a good look for Tesla. They said that it's not something that they're going to change the behavior on because they fixed it. Don't worry.
And by they fixed it, they mean someone else.
Yeah, I guess Tesla would have been the ones to do the moving, but since they were incommunicado, the ESA moved theirs and it was fine. It's bad when both companies move their satellites. That could actually increase chances of a collision.
Satellite chicken. Who's going to break first?
That's $1 billion game of chicken there.
What if there wasn't actually a problem with it, and somebody was like, Mr. Musk, we got to move one of the satellites, and he's like, they'll move theirs. Do you know who I am?
He's tweeting right now. These assholes won't move their thing.
Have you seen any sales numbers on the Galaxy Fold?
0. That would be 0.
I doubt it's 0.
Someone
That's
bought it.
fake news. But I don't think it's setting the world on fire.
No.
I haven't heard any like big numbers from it, but it seems like Samsung is doubling down, or perhaps quartering down.
Samsung is secretly working on a foldable phone that collapses into a square. So
Great.
I have my doubts about this because you can only fold a sheet of paper like 7 times, and something as thick as a phone, folding it twice, that just seems excessive.
Well, I imagine it's still only 2 layers deep, right? It's like if you were to fold a piece of paper with the corners meeting in the middle.
Oh.
That's what I'm imagining. Then I have a picture of it.
Nope.
I don't think anybody's seen it. So
This is just conjecture.
I guess the Samsung folding phone is only for sale in South Korea right now, and it's going to roll out to the U.S. very soon.
What?
I thought it was already available. It's I guess sometime in September.
What phone did you pre-order, Wendell? Tell everybody. You told the chat the other night.
I pre-ordered the FFX Tech. It's the Android phone that has a QWERTY keyboard. It's kind of like the old, like the
flip phone, or
the very last generation T-Mobile Sidekick that had not the spinny screen, but like the flip up screen. It's a little like that, and so I'm really excited about that because the specs on the phone are pretty decent. Some reviewers have gotten theirs. I pre-ordered it. Hopefully, it'll be here soon. I'm all about the keyboard on a phone, but the phone has to be like not a pile of garbage.
That's going to be so good for your Twitter addiction.
I'm looking
Think how
forward
much
to
more
that.
you can tweet.
Yeah,
Much
You'll
more
tweet like
accurate
30
you can
times
be.
a day.
it should be great.
Now, we did a story that was very, very similar to this, and I think it was TechSpot. Do you remember? Because they put out these headlines, and it's like, wow, that's kind of amazing. I mean, we all saw this coming, but already, and then it's like, oh no, this was one company in Germany.
Yeah.
AMD is triumphing over Intel after a decade of second best. And so, and then the subheadline is Germany loves Ryzen. So there's a company in Germany, Mind Factory, I think. They publish data. There's a lot of good information in this article, but basically this reinforces a lot of what the internet already knows, that AMD's got some damn fun CPU products these days.
I think, and this one company in Germany, which is one of their bigger tech retailers, I think, they're outselling them like 4-1.
Yeah,
which is pretty crazy.
Well, I mean, they're within, like 3%, but 30% cheaper, so it's a no-brainer.
Maybe for
Chill.
Germans. We don't know about anybody else.
Where's that hype jar? It's right back there.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's just not got the paper on it anymore.
We need to get an actual mason jar.
Oh yeah.
I have some.
We'll bring one in.
I can bring one in. We need to redo the set.
Yes. Let's just
rip
destroy
it down.
everything.
Let's
Yeah.
just set it on fire right now. The rest of the news people just watch it burn.
Yeah. Those screens cheap. We can get more.
I could get behind that for no, we shouldn't destroy the technology, but we could move it around.
That's not going to get the same kind of hits.
I do want to kind of maybe put a mic stand in the build it into
Rosie.
Yeah, so that you could and then it can just do everything.
They can't see that.
Rosie's our cart that's got all our stuff on it.
It's really handy because it's on wheels. I move it all the time.
In the same vein of the last story, Intel seems to all of a sudden be very interested in how people are benchmarking. Intel says, guys, Cinebench isn't a real-world program. Why are you running it? Why are you showing these results that show our processors are only marginally, if not at all faster than our competitor? Stop doing that because it's not real world.
Intel is suddenly becoming very concerned with real-world benchmarking. So this one's from Extreme Tech, unlike TechSpot, but it's really beating a lot of the same drum as TechSpot. And to be sure, I mean, AMD has not executed perfectly here. There's like the boost clocks fumbles. There's a little bit of fumble with some of their graphics cards and stuff. But to be as relatively tiny as they are, this is pretty amazing.
Who designed that graphic?
The real world stuff, like the thing in this is actually notebook applications. Like,
Krista, are you pretending that you can read that?
I don't have to read it to see how ragged that text looks.
What this is a list of the most commonly used applications.
on notebooks.
Chrome is up here at the top. Obviously, everybody's using a web browser, right? But is it Cinebench? It's hard for me to read too. It's tiny.
It's 1,331. If only it had been 6 more places.
So that's Intel's argument. It's like, hey, why aren't you doing all your benchmarks based on Chrome? But of course, it's a ridiculous argument because Chrome is going to run on almost anything. That's not, if you're buying $1,000 or $2,000 processor, benchmarking Chrome is not going to answer any questions.
Maybe we should benchmark an episode of the news with all of the tabs and the plugins and the blockers, and that's what Extreme Tech talks about too. Is like everybody's Chrome is going to be different because nobody's using vanilla Chrome anyway.
So yeah, it seems like it's a little bit of sour grapes from the losing team.
Yeah. Well, it's funny though because Intel's not really the losing team. Oh, in the server space, they definitely are the losing team, but on desktops, they're not really the losing team, but it's close enough that there's not price parity. Like, if you're using Chrome, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between probably the really cheap 3600 Ryzen and like a 9900K. Like, you're just not. If it's just Chrome is what you're doing, I don't think you can tell.
That's not real world.
There's a fly.
Oh no.
Yeah, he's been buzzing around for a few minutes. I don't know where he came from.
It's not good.
Well, when it comes to the processor game,
This story was fascinating.
no matter how much AMD might be getting ahead, everybody is hitting the wall.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do about that 7 nanometer wall? Well, it turns out that you've got to get extreme, extreme ultraviolet. And how are you going to do that? Well, there's a tiny little Japanese company that you've never heard of. That's like all they do is just eat Doritos and drink Mountain Dew and study lithography.
Tiny Japanese firm helps to crack the code for next-gen computer chips. Ushio is another Japanese company with global influence. It's fascinating. So to make this extreme ultraviolet light, they apparently vaporize little pieces of tin. So like they use one laser to like cut off a little tiny piece of tin, float it somewhere, and then hit it with something else, and then that turns it into extreme ultraviolet light, which can then be used for lithography. And apparently some of these things are made by hand. So like these people this is not really automation. This is like nth degree craftsmanship. These are like Swiss watchmakers of lithography. It's crazy.
This thing here,
Craft tech.
this is a testing device. This is not fabrication. No. This tests the lenses they use, or what do they call them? The things that like have to be perfect for the die.
I don't know.
Anyway, it takes 15 people simultaneously to operate this thing, and it's just for testing.
Swiss watchmakers, except
Japanese.
yeah, and also not watches.
But it
Be a
seems
fun
like
branding project.
the way they explain it, they were like, yeah, so the testing thing was what was slowing us down. We've already figured out all the other stuff. Now that we can test these things and make them absolutely perfect before they go into the fabrication process, we should make rapid, progressions toward even smaller transistors.
Yeah, they said that they're going to be cash flow positive next year, which is exciting. An exciting thing for them to say, I guess.
And they also refuse to do any mass market work.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we do this. This is all that we do.
This is what it's in like the Marvel universe, or like the thing. It's like there's one tiny little thing that in the universe that makes the one little thing that makes everything go. It's like it's those guys.
I guess I haven't seen enough of the Marvel Universe movies
Yeah, I don't
to
know.
know what you're talking about. We talk a lot about copyright and trademark and how ridiculous it gets sometimes. I mean, people will rush to trademark and copyright the simplest things. Of course, we see all these patents that Apple and everybody throws out. And sometimes it gets beyond ridiculous. So ridiculous that the people that do it just have to shamefully be like, all right, just pretend we never did that. Just put it back the way it was.
Business Insider says that WeWork paid its own CEO $5 million US.
5 million?
5.9 million US dollars to use the name We, but now the CEO is going to give it back. So
What a cool guy.
yeah, I mean, they were going to rebrand as like the We Company, and they wanted to trademark We, but he already had the trademark on We. But the trademark on We wasn't part of like the acquisition. I guess like when We went public or took angel investors or something, the CEO got to continue to own the trademark on We, and now they just, I don't know, that seems
What a stupid name, just from like a standpoint of like SEO and stuff like that.
Yeah, hard to search. But they're looking at an IPO, I guess. And so they're getting a bunch of scrutiny.
Yeah.
And when the regulators came in, they were like, what
is
did
this?
you do? He was just like, you know what, let me give you this money back. And you can keep the We as well. Since I do run this company, and it would be in our best interest to get this IPO.
Little WeWork, in case you're living under a rock, is co-working space. So like everybody works from home, but every now and then people need to get together. You can go to an office that any one of a dozen anonymous companies might use. And it's like, I'm going to reserve the conference room in 4 offices today. And today we're in the WeWork suite. And it's like, hipster nonsense.
That's actually a feature I've seen a lot in apartment buildings now.
Yeah.
Where you have like a
co-working
conference
space.
space, yeah, that you can like.
Probably
rent out.
run by WeWork.
How much of that you think is used almost exclusively for multi-level marketing?
I'll say not the ones around here. As far as I know, they're not done through WeWork, but
They do that at like Panera's and stuff.
Oh, yeah, we saw that.
oh yeah, we went to Panera and listened to someone give a pitch for some LMM thing. No,
There's something in the water. None of us can talk today.
I may have taken a nap. Right
I need
before
more
came over.
caffeine.
So we talked about the wristband that was going to detect your wrist, your skin pattern, your specific snake-like design on your body. Amazon says, hold my beer, we can go further than that.
Amazon is reportedly working on a new payment system that will let you check out at Whole Foods and other places like that with just a wave of your hand. It's going to look at the size and shape of your hand and the pattern of your skin and a bunch of other things and check you out. It's like, this is not the empanadas you're looking for.
Yeah, the Star Wars nerds are going to go crazy for this.
Yeah.
So the idea here is, and I don't know, like, what insanity the Bezos is going on about, because he said, you know what, it takes sometimes as many as 5 seconds to register a chip reader on a card. And that's crazy. Our system can do it in like 300 milliseconds. So just wave your hand. Although I will admit, I hate it when I'm at a grocery store and it's always an old woman with a giant purse. And she's just sitting there watching them, scan, and she's just chatting away, not loading her cart.
Yeah.
And then they're done. It comes time to pay, and she's like, "Oh, let me just dig in my purse for 20 minutes to get this card out." It's like, you should have had that ready. What were you doing?
And if it's a true old lady, she'll have a check.
You had
And coupons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, should I have told you that I had coupons at the start?
People
My
get very
bad.
angry if they don't do that either. And then
So,
you have to tell them to go to the service desk.
I do think that this would help. Although I think the old lady crowd probably isn't into the hipster places like Whole Foods. I guess maybe they are. I don't know.
Some of them are.
The thing that they point out here, and it's obvious, is when this gets data leaked, as it will do, your hand data is not something that you can update like your password or your PIN number.
Yeah.
So
Cletus, the meth head, is going to be down at the local Whole Foods, and he's just going to be going nuts buying everything that they've got.
with his artificial hand.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I can just, modify my hand. He got a hand reader that he stole a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, oh, it's recognizing as some other guy now. It's good.
You get banned from Whole Foods and you have to sandpaper your hand down to get a new identity.
Oh,
Oh,
it
man.
looks like you're using an ad blocker.
Popular
no.
Science does an aggressive ad blocker. So we talked about Tesla before, and the one thing we didn't talk about was the new Player 2 has entered the game, and it is the Porsche Taycan Turbo. Turbo? There's no turbine. And none other than Mr. Musk pointed that out in a savage tweet.
Which we can't see.
Porsche's first electric vehicle hits 161 miles per hour and promises fast charging. They said it went 2,100 miles in 10 hours, including the time for charging, but it was using 800-volt charging.
But it kept an average speed of like 90 kilometers per hour, or was it 90 miles per hour?
I think it was 9. I don't know. That's a good question. I think it was 90 kilometers, but I wouldn't swear to that.
But here's the catch: it's $150,000, $175,000, I think, for like the Turbo S.
So let's get two.
Yeah, but pretty cool. You can't argue with it. It also has a 2-speed transmission, which helps with the because at not max speed, you lose a lot of efficiency from those electric motors. So that's supposed to help with that.
That's interesting.
And apparently nobody else does that because just the insane torque. This thing has more torque than horsepower. It's got like 750 horsepower, and then the torque is in the 790s.
Wow.
So you could just roast the tires off of this thing if you wanted to. Now, they took it to the Nürburgring, I don't know how to pronounce that racetrack. It's the famous one in Germany.
They didn't break any records, but they got close.
But Tesla says he will rent it and he will beat them with a Model S.
Literally beat them. Like, just take pieces of it off and just beat the people who engineered it.
It's going to go into warp speed mode and destroy the voltage regulation circuitry, but he'll beat them, by God.
But yeah, there's definitely going to be some hot competition in the EV space when more and more people start putting them out. Although, I don't know, maybe they should put a scoop in the hood just for the turbo thing, It's like, but there's no compressor. On to security. Supermicro. They've got a little problem with their server hardware. Tiny problem.
Over 47,000 Supermicro servers are exposing their BMC ports on the internet. The BMC is the baseband management controller. This is the remote management functionality on these Supermicro servers. It is a problem with the implementation of virtual media. Got news for you. If you're a sysadmin, your server's management port should not be exposed on the internet in the first place. This is still sensitive, inside a data center or something like that, because you could have an escalated attack. But what on earth are people doing putting their management, their IPMI, their Internet Protocol Management Interface controllers of their servers just naked on the internet with no firewall, just letting anybody log in or attempt to log in? That's crazy.
So they've got USB Anywhere, which is where you plug a USB device in, And if you're connected through this management thing, it treats it as if your USB device is on the remote machine. And there's also an exploit that can be, it's patched now, but it probably isn't. I mean, if you've got it exposed on the internet, you're probably not keeping up with your updates.
Yeah, nobody ever updates this stuff.
So you could, through this exploit, attack that USB anywhere and, get into these systems.
You have a remotely attached keyboard. So if somebody's logged into the system, you can do stuff. You can have a locally attached USB device that's malicious, that's doing all sorts of malicious things to the system. So as soon as an admin uses that to do something, you can take over. Nice.
Easy to fix if you know about it, but if you don't know about it, it's going to be a problem.
Your management stuff should not be on the internet. Why is your management stuff on the internet?
We often talk about mobile exploits, and then there's this holy grail of zero-click interaction exploits. So if you can infect a phone without any interaction from the user, that is insanely valuable. And the way that we know this is we have actual marketplaces, like live marketplaces, where there's one side that's like, I want these exploits, NSA. And then there's another side of the researchers and hackers who are like, okay, I will try to find that and sell it to you. And something that's never happened before has happened this week.
Android exploits are now worth more than iOS exploits for the first time ever. Exploit broker Zerodium?
I think Zerodium is probably correct.
Increases 0-day prices for Android, now worth more than iOS. That might have something to do with last week. There was the reports from iOS that a whole chain of exploits could have malware that lives in RAM that is basically difficult to impossible to detect because it doesn't put anything on the file system on Apple devices. But Android devices have stronger security architecture, more application sandboxing, more isolation between processes. It's much more difficult to do a chained attack like that. And so this price increase, I think, makes sense.
Well, I think it also has a lot to do with the fact that if you are likely to be a target of the people who want to pay the most for these exploits, then you're going to have the more secure phone.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Even though that's not the most popular phone, it's the one for your high-value targets.
Yeah. $2.5 million. So if you can visit a webpage and root an Android phone, you can become a millionaire today.
Just don't tell Google about it. They won't give you $2.5 million. You got to sell it on the open market. Don't make that mistake. So we talked about Google and their somewhat abject terror, it seems, about where the industry is going in terms of tracking. And here's another headline they will not enjoy.
Firefox 69 ratchets up tracking protection, switching it on by default.
Thanks, Firefox.
And there goes their monetization.
So this is very similar. We did the WebKit headline about this. Very similar kind of thing. They're just saying it's gotten out of hand. It's too much. And you could already turn this on in some of the previous releases. But now they're like, normies don't know this. Turn it on by default. And we don't care what it breaks.
This is more amazing than the March 2019 tracking by default third-party cookies thing. This is just ratcheting that up to the nth degree. So be sure to look for just abject panic in the advertiser industry over the next few weeks. It should be exciting.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm not looking forward to it because we have to find workarounds.
If we could sell them on the open market.
Yeah, $2.5 million if we... No, I mean...
That would be blood money for sure. But for $2.5 million, I might take it. Wikipedia had a little bit of a hiccup this weekend. It seems some horrible, horrible person has decided to deny the world of knowledge.
Parts of Wikipedia offline after a malicious attack. It was a distributed denial of service attack. We don't know who's behind it yet. It's a little bit of a developing story.
Also, the WoW servers got hit. Husband was not thrilled.
Oh, I wonder if the Wikipedia was collateral damage then.
Yes, yeah, I don't know.
You think they share a server somewhere?
They probably share a service like Akamai or one of those people.
Yeah, so unfortunate. Imagine that you were writing a research paper and you put it off and it's due Monday.
Gonna have to go to the library. Gonna have to go all 20th century on your technology.
What?
The
That big building you
word
skip
that you're
through?
using? Which library do I install to get around this? I almost put this in breach of the week, but it's not really a breach. It's just poorly made. What's the name of the Chinese kid who writes all the software? Heesung. This is definitely a Heesung kind of story.
600,000 GPS trackers left exposed online with a default password of 123456.
At least they went with 6 digits.
Yeah.
They could have stopped at 4.
Well, I mean,
Is that much better though?
we saw this with like Wi-Fi routers and crap like that. They came, with like admin password, and then they started getting stickers where everyone has a sticker on the bottom with a different number. That's what you're gonna have to do because nobody ever changes the password. And that's so dumb. Like, why are people so dumb?
And this is not just a tracker. This has a microphone that can be turned on, so you can do a lot with this basic password, and you can track their movement and listen in. I think you can send messages to the device. It's pretty bad. Sad, but not a breach.
Not technically a breach.
Just poorly made. We didn't have any breaches this week that I could find.
Oh, there definitely were. There just weren't any like really big ones.
Well, big names.
Breach of the week.
The Facebook thing, the 600,000 or 400,000. No, it was 400 million phone numbers.
Oh, I forgot to put that one in there.
And we had just talked about it last episode.
Because
Facebook, if you gave Facebook your phone number, they accidentally posted it online.
Well, there's your breach of the week.
We did it.
We'll see you on Friday for some robots and some nonsense.
Yeah.
Hello. I don't know what day it is, but it's the very end of the week.
Plus 2. The last one was an obvious date.
13th, 14th?
It's Friday the
11
13th.
plus 2.
Oh, it's Friday the 13th. Spooky. Just in time for spooky season.
Not quite.
Is it 14th?
No, it's not quite spooky season.
Oh, it's not. No. You're messing me up right now. It is spooky season because all of the pumpkin spice stuff's starting to come out.
Well, that could...
Like, the pumpkin spice latte's back.
But doesn't pumpkin spice season go all the way to Thanksgiving? I associate that more with Thanksgiving.
I think it goes all the way to, like, December now.
I could go for some pumpkin spice pumpkin pie.
Sometimes they switch over to, like, holiday spice, and it's the same.
It is kind of the same.
Sometimes you get...
Well, I saw an ad for it at Starbucks the other day.
Sometimes holiday spice means peppermint, and so, like, peppermint and offensive things, and that is not acceptable.
Is peppermint a spice? It's more of an herb, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. But it's like, oh, here's our peppermint whatever. And it's like, no.
Well, speaking of artificial intelligence, language, processing language is the big deal for artificial intelligence. Because people think about AI, think about the Terminator, carry on a conversation with you as it kills you. But we're just not there. We don't have it. Because we don't have machines that can think or learn or things like that on the level that we think of as what those words mean. But we're moving in that direction. And what was that TV show where it's like, are you smarter
than a fifth grader?
Right. So the question for the AI is, are you smarter than an 8th grader?
Breakthrough AI. Passing an 8th grade science test. So,
like, you got bummed out in the middle of that?
Well, it's because this, for
the
whatever
fly
reason, the
is-
fly's
Oh, the
here.
fly, yes.
And
It's
then
killing
also
us.
this article is paywalled, though I didn't have it when I read it at home.
well, they were trying to pass a high school test, but they struggled passing a high school test, but they were able to pass an 8th grade test. There's no figures like the geometry questions. It's like solve for X, none of that. But there are actually questions on this test that require logic and reasoning, such as like, which of the following 4 questions might cause a decrease in the squirrel population in a given area? And the thing was actually able to read and understand those questions. Well, understand in quotation marks there, but read and understand the questions well enough to respond to them intelligently. And it got an A on the 8th grade science test. And then they tweaked it a little bit and did the high school test, and it got like a B, like a low B. It was like an 80, I think.
It's now writing depressing poetry and talking about how it's never going to get into college.
And vaping.
Yeah. So, and I guess the AI this is based on read Wikipedia and a whole bunch of fiction novels and crap like that.
It was this AI was only designed to take tests.
Yeah.
That's all it does is take multiple choice tests.
It was never the knowledge that was killing it. It was interpreting the language of the test.
Yeah.
That's the big thing here.
So are you saying that the student has been forced to meld its mind to the test instead of actually learning knowledge?
This is like a brilliant Japanese student who doesn't speak a word of English, and then he moves to the U.S. and like he could knock out the entire U.S. curriculum no problem, but he has to figure out how to take the test.
Yeah.
So
That's
interesting.
pretty much all school is anymore. But
One step closer to the end of humanity. Looking forward to it. We talk a lot about robots, and this is, after all, the robot and AI section. And one thing that is universal that we maybe didn't predict, which is weird because we should have, because people are terrible, is people are very abusive toward robots. And Wired asked the question, should we be? Is there a reason to be?
Of course, citizens should be allowed to kick robots. Seen in the wild, robots often appear cute and non-threatening. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be hostile. The author's reasoning is that, like a cop car parked on the side of the street, the robots are there and invasive, and so we behave differently than we would if they weren't around. And so that is reason enough to kick a robot.
And this one in particular, so this is, we've seen these guys before. I think this is the one that fell in the fountain, isn't it?
Yeah.
This
Bless its
design.
heart.
Existential crisis.
So these robots have been used to corral homeless people away from buildings, and basically what they're doing is collecting data. They're seeing who you are, where you're walking, how you're interacting with the building. They're owned by the building. And so this author is just saying, like, yeah, these robots aren't doing us any good. They're there for nefarious purposes. You should attack them. Which, I don't know. I mean,
Maybe.
it is private property.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, it's just kind of not because of like it has any personhood or anything, but it does probably belong to a person.
I think that somehow, like, I don't know why, but as I was reading that, I remember thinking about like public toilets, and like people do terrible things to public toilets.
But you normally wouldn't be there, so it's okay to just
No,
crap
but-
all over him.
But public toilets are very useful.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a good reason not to destroy a public toilet because you might have to come back there again.
but people do it anyway, and I don't get why.
I mean, that's a cyclical thing.
If it's going to be okay to kick robots, people are going to destroy public restrooms.
The broken window fallacy.
Yeah.
If your robot is in poor condition, it could really cause the crime rate to skyrocket in your area.
It's amazing it's not been spray painted or anything yet.
And give them time.
Yeah.
That would be a great way to get your tag seen, right? 'Cause it's like a mobile
Yeah.
billboard.
ROM. We have a couple people who tag our area. There's a war between ROM and who's the other one?
I can't remember.
There's two.
Which is why the other one's no good.
It's illegible.
No, I remember
Isn't it
his
like
name.
Shark or something?
I'm gonna look for it out in the streets when I'm going home because I see it a lot.
You should tweet it. No, don't do that.
Yeah, I can't do that.
In China, they've got this thing called the army worm. That sounds very intimidating, doesn't it? And apparently this thing will destroy your crops in a real quick fashion.
Is it like
And
Blight in RimWorld?
It's invasive. It's actually from here, I think. But when it got to China, it was like, oh my God, look at all this vegetation. I love it. And what was their response? Very Chinese, of course.
China drone attack on crop-eating monster shows a 98% kill rate. So these drones fly about, look for infestations of this thing, and then selectively apply pesticide to get rid of it, with a 98% success rate. But this dramatically lowers the amount of relatively toxic pesticide that is applied to the crop.
Yeah, instead of just blanketing all of your fields from an airplane, you send these guys out. And they also, I think this pesticide's a little weaker
Yeah.
than what they would use normally. And so, because it's getting right there on top of it.
Yeah, it's targeted.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
That is neat.
Although I'm sure there are some other kinds of things living in these farms who are getting blasted with pesticide who probably don't enjoy it. I don't know. They do need a lot of food over there, and they probably ship a lot of it our way. So I'm going to say,
All right.
keep going with that. And when it comes to the drone game, what happens if there are bad drones, evil drones to, spy on us and destroy our lives and steal our Amazon packages? Well, China also has an answer for that.
China says its drone can hunt like Spiderman. So these drones are going to fly around and drop a net on whatever. And yeah, woo.
I don't remember Spider-Man flying or dropping nets.
Yeah, I don't understand the Spider-Man analogy at all.
But here you go. So you see one is caught up here. They got these big nets.
I'm caught in a very tiny net.
It's a medium-sized net.
You think maybe the people in Hong Kong could use that to catch the smoke grenades launched from the buildings?
Well, that is kind of the argument. It's like, okay, are we the bad guys here? That's the Communist Party running those drones. So I think Japan already did that, didn't they? Because they had like the Yakuza were running drugs with drones, and then there was an arms race of which drone could destroy the other, which is great for drone technology. Really moves the needle. Deepfake is a big scare in the world right now, and it just keeps getting better. We see more and more deepfake technology, and China is the latest one to step up and give us some amazing deepfake technology.
Chinese deepfake app Zhao sparked privacy row after going viral. So there was a clause in the license that said that they get to permanent, oh Lord, that's loud.
Yeah, I can hear it over there.
They
Look at that.
Oh.
yeah. So finally,
Pretty incredible.
This is one of the very first things that we said on Level 1 News is like eventually there's going to be technology where I can just put Danny DeVito as all roles in a movie.
It's here. There it is. This is just some guy in a...
Friday the 13th, September 13th, 2019. There it is. And the Chinese people have brought it to me. It's amazing, an amazing thing. It's not. This is really bad.
But there's a catch.
The company gets a free, irrevocable, permanent, transferable, and replaceable?
Relicensable.
Relicensable rights to all user-generated content. This is very similar to the Russian app. So Russia and China have both done this kind of thing. And, of course, we have to freak out about it now.
Yeah.
If it was an American company like Facebook, it would be fine. We have like Ron Wyden to complain about it, but basically nothing would happen.
Oh, there's that foreshadowing.
Facebook is making its own deepfakes and offering prizes for detecting them. So, yeah, if you can detect that this is a deepfake, show Facebook how, and you get money. So they can make better Facebooks.
And they're not screwing around here. They have super state-of-the-art. They've got like a really talented team just designed around making the best deepfakes in the world and putting them out there. And if you can find them, you get that sweet money. So that's pretty cool. I think the best way to do this, and I'm not sure if this is how they're doing it, but they should never tell people where the deepfakes are. They should just be like, scan everything. Just turn on CNN and just let it run, because you never know. We're going to sneak one into the news or whatever. And that way we'll have just a giant dragnet on all of the media's communications to find out where the fake is. Robots are really good at medicine, it turns out. It seems like mostly they detect things. They're good at looking at x-rays and scans and cultures and things like that, and doing a really good job of weeding out the healthy versus the possibly sick. They have huge success rates. But now we're stepping into a brave new world where robots are actually going to cut into you and fix you.
First, long-distance heart surgery performed via robot. Before you get excited, long distance in this case means 20 miles, which seemed like an unnecessary risk for the patients in my eyes.
You think you could have hopped in a cab?
Yeah, I mean...
Maybe the patient was like, yeah, whatever, I'll try this. This isn't uncommon. They've had surgical robots for a while. This one's the first one that's distance, but...
Here it is. And, remember there was that story where they killed a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they had, like, the robot surgeon, and there were supposed to be 3 or 4 backups in case something went wrong. And they were all like, hey, I'm going to knock off early. You got this, right? You're good with the robot surgery? I'll see you tomorrow. See you next week, actually. I'm going to take a long weekend. And then the guy died.
Yeah.
Which is sad. But, yeah, they did this time. I think he did like 25 surgeries that day.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So,
I'm a doctor. I'm a surgeon. I can work from home now.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Like, your surgeon might not even be wearing pants.
Finally.
But it does take out some of the risks of infection and, like germs and stuff.
That's true.
Because there's always that risk with a live surgeon. Yeah. But it does also bring up, like, what if the power goes out? I doubt you could run a robot surgeon on a backup battery for very long.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you got 5 minutes to close him up. It's beeping.
You got 5 minutes to get 20 miles.
That's what I was gonna say. I don't know how that. Usually hospitals have really like complex like generator networks and stuff, but I don't know how
Yeah,
that
I think
works.
actually it's seamless in a hospital, so it probably wouldn't
Yeah.
be that big a deal. But does the guy on the other end have that?
That's a good point.
And on to the nonsense section. And let's talk about, first, before we see the headline, look at him, little Garlic.
Yeah,
He's adorable.
little baby kitten.
What's special about Garlic? Well, he's not unique.
Kitten cloned by Chinese Sinogene?
Sinogene, yeah.
Chinese firm Sinogene after owner struggles to come to terms with the cat's death. The cat died suddenly and unexpectedly, so he cloned him. I wonder if the fur pattern turned out exactly the same.
90%, they said.
Wow.
So this is Garlic 2. And
He didn't even give him his own name.
he was a pure clone from the original Garlic. But he's, again, only 90% the same. And it is yet to be seen if his behavior will be anywhere close to the original Garlic.
I would say no, because like there's so many little things that make up your personality. Like,
Well, we're going to find that out, aren't we? This is the ultimate nature versus nurture. I mean, you could try to raise him the same way, but it's a cat, so who knows? Now, they talk about, this is about $51,000 for a cat, $78,000 for a dog. Krista, if Rue, like,
no.
chokes to death on her cone, and you can pay $78,000 to get another little Rue.
No, I wouldn't do that with my last dog, Quincy, either. No, they're gone. If I want another dog, I'll have to start from scratch.
So, but they point out that at least, this was what, in Japan? China. In China, it's not just rich people who do this. People will go into debt
Wow.
to get Garlic too.
There's so many other animals that need homes. Like,
Probably the one child thing has something to do with that.
I don't think they do that anymore, do they?
no, that's not a thing anything. I
Is
don't
it?
think anymore.
Yeah,
no.
they're allowed to breed all they want now.
Engagement challenge?
Got to get as many little commies as you can out there. We have, speaking of pets, a lot of people really bond deeply with their pets. Obviously, you're going to pay $51,000 or $78,000 to get them back after they die. You clearly have maybe too much of an attachment to your pet. And sometimes people have unusual pets, animals that we don't think of as pets, that we think of as food. And it can be wrong to treat them like your other pets.
The CDC is warning people not to kiss chickens. CDC has linked salmonella cases to families raising poultry in their backyards. So, yeah, turns out chickens get salmonella when they're still alive.
Gee, I wonder where they're doing this.
St. Petersburg, Florida, as it turns out.
People here raise chickens all over the place.
Yeah,
we had
but
chickens
Did
growing
they
up.
make out with them?
No, we did pick them up a lot.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that.
I had one that was like, he was like a little cat to me, or like a dog. He would just come up and let me pick him up.
I think chickens they can develop real personalities.
Yeah.
Uh,
He got
So-
eaten by a dog.
oh, that's a nice way to end that story.
Yeah. Anyway,
Oh, man. I just
Oh,
couldn't help myself.
it's going to trigger
So,
some people.
You know, trolling the Tesla drivers is fun, but it's kind of getting old. And the AMD people, it's always fun, but they're winning. I mean, what can you
Nothing-
say?
yeah.
What can you say about that anymore? So my new favorite target is the vapors, and boy, are they easy to set off. And so
let's
we
be
have
clear, Ryan is just trolling, and it works every time.
we have a vaping epidemic in this country, and it's just getting worse.
Epidemic is definitely the way to describe that. 21-year-old in coma for complications related to vaping. So this is a medically induced coma because his respiratory system is basically destroyed. And the article blames vaping.
Yeah, well, we don't know anything else about. Now I did see a couple of headlines about this. So they're saying that they tracked it down to one kind of THC vape that had some like additive in it that should never be vaped. But then there were more stories about it. And you have to wonder like how much of it is just, fear porn headlines and how much of it is real.
Yeah.
But we're definitely seeing a lot of people getting really messed up by the vape. So who knows? Who knows where this will go?
Is this like in the 80s? It seems like people were like smoking Vaseline and stuff like that, and that ended badly as well.
I've never heard
I
of
don't
that.
remember that. No. I
Are
mean,
you,
I wasn't
are you
alive.
talking about the formaldehyde?
Yeah, the formaldehyde thing. Yeah,
that
like
was.
doing like they would roll their own, and it was just like, let's smoke some random thing, and it's just like, Jesus.
Well, you would soak your cigarettes in your formaldehyde.
That's essentially like what meth is. I mean, not the formaldehyde, but like it's just like, oh, just throw some batteries in there. All right.
Huh? I mean, that does. Well, I've never done it, but by all accounts, that is an effective way to get high. So I suppose vaping is too. Yeah. Who knows? If you have both vaped and smoked formaldehyde, let us know if those compare at all.
How did that? Would you like to write about your experiences in the comments below?
Oh, electric cars, they're catching on. But there's a problem because people don't quite seem to understand what it means to have an electric car. For example, the Taycan Turbo. So Ford decided to get out there and do some market research, and some disturbing things were learned.
Ford study finds that 42% of Americans think electric cars still need gasoline.
That's not the most distressing thing in this survey, because I could see that, like, 'cause there were so many hybrid cars for a long time.
I really worry about the future of America.
But they also
there were some
thought
other ones that were much more worrying.
they thought they were slow.
Yeah.
Which, say what you want about electric cars, they're fast. Yeah, and really disturbing.
You think maybe people think the electric cars are slow because of cars like the Nissan Leaf?
Well,
That's-
yeah,
it
they
has to be,
associate them
yeah.
with those hybrid and the garbage cars that we had for so long. That like the cars that were just supposed to make you feel good about yourself. But modern electric cars are neither slow or that great for the environment, so it's a win-win. We had the hurricane. Did that ever make landfall?
It never made it to Florida. I think it just kind of brushed up the coast.
I know it just wrecked the Bahamas.
It did. It did, like, destroyed the Bahamas. But
When I say
don't think
landfall, I mean mainland U.S.
I don't think so. I think it just, like, skimmed it. It never really, like, went overland.
Well, I think this completely justifies Miss Marianne Williamson then. She was right.
Marianne Williamson denies she's crazy after deleting a tweet about the power of mind impacting Hurricane Dorian's path.
This is a presidential candidate.
Again, I sort of worry about the future of America.
So here we is. She's talking about using the power of the mind. It only takes 2 minutes. You don't have to.
Prayer and visualization.
Well, you need and meditation. It's the triple threat. Any two of those alone couldn't do it. You got to do all three. And I think she's done it. She turned it. She wrecked the Bahamas, but she saved Florida and the Carolinas.
Maybe she just had everyone in her town put fans outside the window. Blow it back out to sea.
X'd out.
Imagine what she'll be able to do as president with this power.
The power of thoughts and prayers.
The Mass Transit Authority in New York has a very specific gripe about Apple users. Now, I know what you're thinking. No, it's not any of those thousands of reasons. It's this one.
New York's MTA might warn riders not to remove their AirPods on the subway because it's tired of picking them up. So specifically, they're talking about people dropping the AirPods on the tracks.
Oh.
And it turns out
That happens a lot.
it happens a lot, and a lot of people are more than happy to hop down there and try to get them back because those are expensive. That's not recommended.
No. Instead, they've got a special retrieval device, which there's a picture of, which is amazing.
Well, I think this girl made her own.
Yeah. Well, it was duct tape on the end of a stick.
She got it. Good job. And they will actually, if you go and complain to them, they will slow down or stop the trains to recover your pod.
That would never happen in Japan.
Can you imagine if you're waiting on a train, you got a big, appointment coming up, and you have to wait for an AirPod to be rescued? I say just push whoever's doing it. Right? Just take one for the team. You'll go to prison, but you'll have made the world
How
a better
much are
place.
AirPods? Like 150?
Yeah.
For the pair.
Yeah.
But if you lose one, you can't just get another one to replace, right?
Yeah.
Is
You
it
gotta
do
get
the
one.
pair?
Yeah.
And I think if you've got a mismatched pair, I don't think that works either.
Which is sad because you could, like,
Yeah.
homeless people could just go down and run through the tracks and pick those up. I mean, that's way better than collecting aluminum cans, right? Or copper.
Oh,
It's a little more dangerous, but, risk reward. This one I was not able to read because they have this weird CAPTCHA thing that didn't work for me for whatever
Yeah, I
reason.
didn't see this one.
But this is a great headline.
Silicon Valley heavyweights who want to settle the moon. No, really. So there are a bunch of wealthy people in Silicon Valley that are all, I don't want to live on this planet anymore, and they legit want to build a moon colony. And they see the economic benefits of having the moon colony for like all the cool stuff we can get from the moon and send it back to the U.S. But also they could live there, and it would be magical and amazing.
How snobby do you have to be that just like a regular gated community is not enough for you? No, I need to live on the moon so I can get away from the filthy pores.
So you'd have like an expansion phase for the moon.
Yeah.
Do you think you'd go through like an Old West lawless kind of phase?
Oh, yeah.
And then you'd have pockets of, it'd be like the gold rush. Like they'd find out where the valuable stuff is, and then there would be people just flooding into it.
Yeah. Well, we still have the Old West lawlessness here, basically, where like there are some places that are just so rural that no one cares.
Oh man, here's a great idea for a TV show and or movie. Take the idea of like the 49ers who would just be like, okay, let's throw what we've got into a carriage and get a couple of mules and oxen and we'll just go. And who knows if we'll make it or not. And translate that into like building the shittiest spaceship that you can just hammer together, strap some rockets onto it. It's like, oh, we're going to make it. And then, the journey to the moon and then homesteading the moon.
That was the prediction from Star Trek. Like there was going to be a world war and wiped everybody out, and then that's what led us to the stars.
Yeah, that would be great. Oregon Trail, but the moon. Lunar Trail. Lunar Trail is the name of that show.
Space truckers.
You're welcome.
Can you imagine, like, if you're one of those people and I'm going to finance my trip to the moon in my homemade rocket, making YouTube videos, like doing the reality show thing, but it's like...
Go fund me.
Yeah.
Go moon me. IKEA makes very large stores. Shockingly,
700,000 square feet at the upper end.
Yeah, amazingly massive in some places.
Well, have you been dragged into one yet?
Yes.
I love IKEA.
I like the food in IKEA.
So massive that you can just drop your kids off and get a meal and then journey out into that wasteland. And who knows if you'll come back or not. Well, you can use that to your advantage to have exciting events, but don't advertise them on Facebook.
Police shut down a 3,000-person game of hide-and-seek at IKEA. So IKEA, actually, the most shocking thing about this article, it was going to be like one of those flash mob kind of things, and so 3,000 people show up at IKEA and they're playing hide-and-seek, ha ha ha, everybody has a good time. But even for these very large IKEAs, this made IKEA nervous. But the most amazing thing out of this article was that this is not the first time this has happened, and generally IKEA tolerates it.
I think it was the size of this group.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot of people even just for a regular Saturday.
Yeah.
Although, at 700,000 square feet, 3,000 people could hide in it, especially with all that furniture.
Good Lord.
How do you explain that if you're like hiding inside one of the sofas and someone's like trying to actually buy furniture?
Well, what's funny is the cops showed up and it said that they were stopping anybody who looked like they might be there for a hide and seek game. How do you know? What does that look like?
Everybody except the extremely elderly, who are still hiding there to this day. Rumor has it.
They didn't realize it was called off.
Are you actually like looking at the furniture? Or are you looking for someone under the furniture? I guess that's how you tell.
No, they're stopping at the door.
Yeah.
They were profiling
wow.
them. And again, like, how do you recognize?
How do you know?
This was in Scotland, so.
Too bad. If you're going to organize an IKEA event, just make sure it's below 3,000 people. That's the
rule.
key. We have a healthcare situation here in the U.S.
I think things are getting kind of dicey.
It's talked a lot about.
It's been dicey.
Although I love this idea. Set a price, and this goes to show you that the real value of these services is about 5% of what they charge. And it wouldn't be a big problem if we just cut out the insurance industry.
Yes.
This could totally work.
Doctors aghast at Groupon deals for medical care. There's a bunch of really amazing and hilarious examples. One of the things that the article only mentions in a footnote, which is the reality, is that a lot of these procedures are not for medical purposes. So, like, you're going to go and you're going to get your MRI, and it's going to cost $50 or $100 or whatever with the Groupon deal. And you get your results from that. And so, like, if there's a growth somewhere, that's cool. You can take that back to your doctor. But 999 out of 1,000 times, the doctor is going to order another MRI, and that one is going to have to go through like the regular medical channels, and then it's going to cost $1 zillion and blah blah blah.
And that's when you're like, well, listen, doc, I'll see you in 6 months when they run another Groupon
deal,
and hopefully it won't grow in that time.
Doctors aghast. Well, I feel you talk about like the insurance industry. It's just the doctors are so far removed from billing most of the time. Like, they probably have no idea how much it really does cost.
And we talk about people getting left out, and yes, some people would get left out, but if 1% is left out and everybody else can have affordable health care, is that not better than where we are now?
Where like half of people are left out?
Yeah, where everybody's left out.
But the insurance industry pays our politicians. Who will think of the politicians?
My favorite thing here in America is that lately the price of insulin has gone crazy. So it's $1,000 a month, whereas like a year ago it was $35 a month.
We need to talk to Groupon about doing some insulin deals.
It's going to happen for prescription medication sooner
You know
or
what?
later.
We should let's see if we can find some expired insulin. do like a Big Lot style, like a Big Lots of a Big Lot pharmacy.
Like 6 month expired insulin, that's fine. 2 years expired, not so much.
We got this Vicodin that's only 5 days off. So take it quick. You can't just keep it in your medicine cabinet. But if you're getting your root canal today, you're fine.
Yeah, I learned the hard way about the expiration thing because I got some Chips Ahoy from Big Lots not too long ago, and it's like, oh, this is amazing because it was like $1 for like the big thing. They were already gone.
Yeah,
they already tasted like cardboard.
little off.
Yeah.
You got to know how to shop at Big Lots.
Yeah, food is usually not the best call at Big Lots.
Turns out.
Yeah, there was that lamp I got at Ollie's. That was a bad investment.
I'll get like a gallon of milk at Big Lots in a pinch, but even that's not great.
Milk seems like a real gamble with that.
I mean, it's still good. Like, I've never had bad milk from Big Lots, but like it always does. Like, it's a weird brand, so it never tastes the same as regular milk.
Tastes a little metallic.
Yeah.
That's because the real brand that made it was like, no, we're not putting their name on this.
It's milk. Picture of a cow, but it doesn't actually say milk anywhere on the box.
Is the lamp you got at Ollie still threatening to burn your house down?
I don't use it.
It makes a sad beep noise.
The coil whine is so extreme that it bothers me, so I just don't even use it. I'm sure it's definitely a threat for fire.
You turn it on, the cats just start freaking out and wailing like they're in horrible pain. It's like, oh, can you hear something I can't hear? Is it worse? Is it louder for you guys?
If that would keep them out of the bedroom, that might actually be useful. Oh, we've entered into this world where words are harmful, literal violence, and it just gets darker and darker every day. And so, Microsoft. Now, you might think that something, as a code base as big and prevalent as Chromium would already be pretty clean, right? But no, not clean enough for the people at Microsoft.
Allow list, not whitelist. Block list, not blacklist. Goodbye, WTF. Microsoft scans the Chromium code and locks off offensive words. This is part of the move to take IE Edge to the Chromium and WebKit-based browser rendering engine away from their own internal proprietary thing, which was always terrible. So they're trying to make it as politically correct as possible.
Look at these guys in blue shirts mopping. Like that was their stock photo for this. It's not terrible. So yeah, they've come up with a variety of things that are not allowed in the code. Never mind that the consumer is never going to see these. And what do they hurt? I mean, in the context of code, does blacklist, do you think in the history of code, all right, ever since we've been writing code, has the word blacklist ever appeared in code talking about African Americans?
I don't think so.
That's got to be almost vanishingly likely. Like winning the lottery back-to-back 5 or 6 times kind of numbers.
You think they have movie nights at Microsoft?
What?
Like, it's like, let's do a team building exercise and like have a movie night at Microsoft.
Like maybe they watch Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, I mean, you could never have a movie of any kind. Like, no movie, none, like nothing.
Yeah.
It's just from like a logistical standpoint, like just have it like spending the time, the man hours on doing this. That's what I don't get. Because like ultimately, I don't really care if it's blacklist or blocklist, but why, if it's already there, maybe just have a policy like don't use that term anymore.
It's funny because they have the response from one of the developers, and it was like, I don't know if we should really be putting a lot of resources toward this, but I support it. You could tell it was like, no, don't turn the guns on me, but maybe just push this to the back burner.
Yeah, it's so completely like just not important in the grand scheme of things. Like,
and what if you introduce a typo with these stupid changes,
and then something breaks ambiguously?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. Sad. It's a dark world we live in. But welcome to it. It ain't changing. Seems like it's here to stay. And finally, we have a story about... Now, we have done stories about... Remember the girl that married a bridge?
Oh, the covered bridge?
Didn't someone marry Pikachu? Or there was a Pikachu wedding ceremony?
Well, there's definitely guys that marry the... What's her name? Hatsune.
Yeah.
That guy. There's a great documentary on YouTube about him. Anyway, people marry things. And it's called, objectophilia. And it's weird, and this one is one of the weirdest.
Math student about to marry her Tetris game. Yeah, there's not really a lot else to this story. Like, honestly, I mean, the story, like... The
picture says it all, really.
Yeah, and the writer did the research and asked the questions and stuff, but really, if you read it, you'll just have more questions.
Well, she started out, as most of us do, in our, fledgling... romantic interest when we begin to, notice I was going to say the opposite sex, but it's not the case here. She started out with a Texas Instrument calculator. That's a tale as old as time. And then she moved on to some other things. She settled on this Tetris cartridge, which looked like a NES cartridge.
Yeah.
You think she's got the old NES that played in? Or
Probably, yeah.
So, oh yeah, they talked
That
about
ain't
the woman that married the Eiffel Tower. They recently divorced.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's too bad.
As it turns out, you can't really marry an inanimate object. It's
So-
not really an equitable partnership.
Now she says that thanks to the massive amounts of merchandise, Tetris-related merchandise, that there is a romantic portion to this courtship. There are, what do they call it? Tetraminos, or there's a word for the shapes.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
So apparently they make some of those in, like less angular, more female body friendly formats, as you might expect. And she has those. But she claims that it's more about romance and less about physicality when it comes to objectophilia. She loves the geometry of it and the shapes.
And the 8-bit music.
And the fact that it can't hurt her like a real human could. I mean, no, it's not about that at all.
I don't know if she's ever tried that one. So yeah, and she's going to change her name. She's going to take the Tetris name. She wants to be called Fractal Tetris Hurricane after her nuptials.
I'm sorry, I have to go.
Oh, so yeah. And she says it's not really anybody else's business, which is kind of true, I guess. And that it's harmless, which, again, kind of true. I mean, the huge benefit here is this person's not going to breed, right?
Do we have to, like, acknowledge her marriage? Because that seems...
Listen, if I have to use new pronouns, yes, you have to call her Tetris. It's physical violence if you don't, Krista.
I mean, I can like.
She Mrs. Tetris? Or what was the name? It was really long.
Well, no, if somebody gets like health benefits or tax benefits or something for,
yeah,
it's
does
fine.
she get taxed?
Whatever.
Tetris doesn't have a job. It's not on a plan.
It's a dependent.
Yeah, but like, yeah. Well, does she get to like mention that she's married on paperwork? I have so many questions about this kind of thing.
I guess she would.
I mean, you could list Hatsune Miku as a dependent and probably get the tax
You
write-offs.
know what? I'll ask the person at H&R Block.
Well, they talked about in Japan, the government doesn't recognize it. It's just that company that will issue a certificate.
Yeah.
So that's not. I don't think you can actually do
Common
that.
law married.
But she is going to have a
Living in sin.
ceremony. Although, do you think that people will be playing Tetris at the ceremony? Because that seems a little,
Oh yeah.
Maybe they're into it.
Yeah, but that's hers now.
I
Where's
feel
the
weird
commitment?
about playing Tetris as a child now because it's like, oh, that was someone's husband. It's uncomfortable.
I love Tetris, and I want to get that Tetris Effect game. But one, it's only on the Epic Store, and two, it's $40. They want
Tetris?
$40 for a game of Tetris. What are they thinking?
I like Tetris, but I like Lumens more.
The Tetris Effect game, though, they made Tetris the most attractive version of Tetris that you can ever imagine. And I kind of want it.
There's probably some Tetris clones on Steam that are nice.
They're not
It's
like
not the
that.
same.
All right, that's all we got.
We'll see you next week.